Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome to Aura's VTH. I hope everybody is doing wonderfully. I am very excited to host someone today that is a very good friend of mine and that is an incredible human. I'm waiting for her to also join me on the computer for the folks that are watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on Twitch. She just joined me here and on Instagram. So I'm super excited to have her. And she's just going to join us in a second. We're going to have a really good conversation with Joe Little from Creative Cleansing. Hi.
Hi, my love. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Let me see. I'm going to try to lower the volume here. I think that's the trick to avoid the feedback. And I'm waiting for you on the on Facebook when you
Can you give me 1 minute and I'm gonna try
for sure. Go ahead and do that, and then I'm gonna wait for folks to join us. There are some people already on Facebook waiting for us, and the Instagrammers are getting all in. So I wanted to talk today. Welcome if you're just joining me to Aura's virtual town halls. Is the topic of this week is for Earth Day, so is my planet, my future, and as part of this week's celebration for Mother Earth, I wanted to bring a variety of speakers that can talk to us about different issues and just different practices for our environment. So today, I'm really excited to be hosting Creative Cleansing, who is Joe Little, and she's going to be talking a little bit about us. She's going to be talking about her journey and her own personal healing journey, and also how maybe we can learn a few things about healing ourselves and our planet, of course. So as we wait for her, I can tell you guys that for me, my passion for the environment started as a very young girl. I was 11 years old when I founded the first environmental club in my school. And ever since I watched a show about the ozone layer, I became extremely passionate about our planet. But it wasn't until later in life when I realized that being good to myself was also being good to other people. So, for example, having meals that are regular, which I think a lot of us may be right now in the times of COVID-19 are struggling a little bit with this, with understanding that, we maybe need a routine, that we need to eat healthy food. It's so easy for those of us that live home alone in the time of COVID-19 to feel like nobody's watching. So we can just be a little more loose and maybe eat more sweets than vegetables or other things that are really that are going to be more wholesome for us in the long run. I also wanted to explore a little bit about on the spiritual and on the practices and on the rituals that we all have in our daily lives, whether it's in these times where we are asked to stay home, or maybe not, when we are just, we practice this all the time. So if you have any questions for Joe, who is going to join us in just a second, about, her routine. She is someone that has a wealth of experience on healthy eating, and especially on raw food and such. This is the time where you can ask her what are some of the things that she can teach us for us to practice. So I also, before we get her in the live stream, I wanted to share a little bit about my own healing experience and how, healing is not something that is linear. It's something that we're learning every day and that we're practicing every day. It's not a place that you arrive to. It's more of a journey. And my journey started 10 years ago when I started meditating with Against the Stream, which is a wonderful meditation center that was near my home. And that's when I started more of my spiritual journey. And in that journey, also understanding that in order for me to be good to other people, I also needed to be great to myself. And in order for me to be good to our planet and to our community, I needed to practice that first with myself. So I wanted to have a guest today that can help us center that conversation a little bit, and that can help us also teach us maybe a few practices that we can have and that we can utilize. And if you have your own practices, I encourage you to please go on the comments and leave a question or leave a message for us as we start this conversation about healing ourselves and how we're healing the planet. Now, in a much more political way, earlier on in my life, I met tons of people that were vegans. And this is quite can be a quite controversial topic for a lot of people. In fact, some of the folks that work in my campaign when I was running for city council were vegan, and even for them to urge me, and I'm not a vegan. In fact, I'm not even a vegetarian anymore. I eat meat, but even for them to encourage me to speak up about veganism and how important it is as part of the environmental movement, and as part of something that releases so much greenhouse gases, that produces so much methane to our atmosphere, and that is poisonous. And the fact that from an animal rights perspective, for someone that feels that a lot of the animals that we that we, I guess, grow and eat are treated in a very inhumane way, so I wanted just to touch upon this aspect of the conversation, because ever since then I don't buy any meat in my home, so I don't have any meat. Sorry for those of you that wanted to have a barbecue. And I just try to not eat a lot of food. So I think I finally got Jo on the chat, and she looks amazing. Yes, and I'm just gonna wait for her to also join me on Instagram so we can have an awesome conversation. And some folks are already asking questions, so that's great. But we're gonna learn about her journey, and we're just gonna have an awesome conversation. So let's do this. All right. Hi, Jo. Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing? I went through about 5 different computers to try and make this work.
No worries. I'm just gonna ask you to lower your yeah, there you go. We take care of the feedback. You look amazing.
Thank you. So do you, always.
Okay, hold on. Let me just try to. Okay, maybe
I got it.
Might work.
I got it.
There you go. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Aura, really.
And this is somewhat like an unusual side of what my viewers usually see of me. They hear me talk about yoga and meditation, but you're my first guest that I invite to talk more about spirituality. So I am so grateful for you.
I'm so grateful for you too. I'm so grateful for you opening up this conversation around spirituality, and especially for the place that you work in. I mean, you have like so many different things going on so many different levels, and I can really imagine that sometimes like having a grounded practice is a thing that really keeps us going in times like this, like when we face difficulties, it's our grounded daily practice that helps us to overcome this.
Absolutely. Um, I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask you is earlier I was sharing a little bit about my own personal journey and how I ended up being a little more spiritual, just personally, and realizing that in order for me to be good to our planet and to my community as a community organizer, I needed to also be good to myself. And sometimes we forget that piece. We forget the part where we need to be good to ourselves first, and then we can be good to others. So why don't you share us a little bit about what was your own journey, your healing journey, and how did you ended up with creative cleansing and starting this movement that you have been creating?
Yes. So, I mean, I also, many years ago lived in a very fast-paced world. I was a production manager and tour manager in the live entertainment industry. So I was running around the world with a very sort of crazy, intense life, long hours, moving all the time. And then 8 years ago, I had a big switch in my life. I had a ruptured brain aneurysm, and I was in a coma for 6 weeks, and I came out with massive brain damage, as you well know. And it really encouraged me to learn a lot about the nervous systems of the body. I took out my central nervous system, and when I woke up, I actually had paralyzed vocal cords. So I didn't eat for 4 months, and I ended up with a real hit to my enteric nervous system, my gut brain. So I really ended up with this, sort of global trauma throughout my body. And over the last over 6 years, I spent a lot of time really intensely working on myself, going really deep into these practices to really heal like my mind, body, and my spirit. I mean, most people, they have a physical issue, a physical problem with their body, but really to have massive brain damage and to try and come back from something like that took a lot of meditation. It took a lot of inner work and a lot of personal strength, I would say, to kind of bring me to where I am today. And a lot of that came through cleansing. I went to go and live at the Optimum Health Institute down in San Diego. I was there for, over 6 months, all in all. And it's such an incredible place to cleanse the body, to really strip down and to detoxify. And it taught me a lot about how cleansing really helps to regenerate the brain. It really helps, like fasting helps to increase your brain hormones, your brain growth hormones, and helps to strengthen your brain on a different level. But fasting also helps to strengthen the spirit, which is something that I'm super grateful for with my deep practice. And I go through many different fasting protocols over the years. And it's really been, the focus of my grounded practice. So
yeah, and you're talking about fasting, and that is something that is so incredibly powerful.
Oh, incredible.
It's so incredibly powerful. And I remember doing one of those, doing a day with you cleansing. Actually, I think it was 3 days.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if maybe you can mute your phone when I'm speaking, because I think folks are getting a feedback. But in these 3 days, I thought I died and I came back in a different body, because it's so incredible when you can, when you have to rely to, like, food is so important. And when you have to rely on a spiritual practice to get through it. And I remember the first time that I actually went through something similar was when I sat with Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese monk. And I was learning about mindful eating. And I want you to maybe talk a little bit about mindful eating yourself. But remember just sitting there and chewing every bite 30 times and taking an incredible amount of time to eat. And I remember that it was such an awakening moment, because it reminded me of my time when I was little, with my brothers in the dining table. And I had a lot of issues as a child eating. I just never wanted to eat. So it brought me back to that moment when I was like with my brothers and they're picking on my food and picking on me because I'm not eating. And it took me being 32 years old with Thich Nhat Hanh to understand this and to do a mindful eating practice. So can you share with us what it's like to have a mindful eating practice for those of us that are in quarantine or that are home, observing social distancing, and that maybe we're required to do something like this right now?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, being mindful is paying attention on purpose. So it's like you're actually being aware of what you're doing. So many of us are asleep at the plate. You think about how many of us are, the food comes to a restaurant, you're having incredible conversation and you're putting something in your mouth and then somebody's talking. And so you're paying attention to them talking and you hardly even know what you're drinking or what you're eating. You don't even really, you're not aware of the taste sensations in your mouth. And so our body and our digestive system actually works on like receiving information from all of our senses, not just from when the food hits our stomach, but our digestive system is aware through what it sees, what it smells, and what it tastes. So if we're not present with what we're tasting and what we're smelling, then our body isn't receiving that information and our pancreas isn't preparing ourselves to get ready to digest the lemon or the steak or the salad. And so by bringing ourselves into awareness with our food, we can really help to not just appreciate it, but digest it and better assimilate the nutrients that are in the food. If you kind of imagine to yourself when you're on the telephone and someone's talking to you, and then somebody walks in the room and starts talking to you also, it's very difficult to listen to both conversations and compute both conversations at the same time. You have to choose which one you're listening to. Mm-hmm. So if you're not paying attention to what's going on your plate and you're not paying attention to what's going on in your mouth, then you're not giving yourself full awareness to be able to integrate the information that's coming into your body. And so the important thing about mindful eating is it really helps you to digest on a deeper level.
That's so great. And maybe the homework for all of us is to try to chew 30 times every time we put something in our mouth.
You see, the thing is like, I think that counting, even chewing something and counting, saying 30 times, takes you out of the present awareness of what you're actually doing. Mm-hmm. So the experience is, if you're chewing and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, then you're actually counting something else and you're not paying attention to what's going on in your mouth. So a tip that I like to use is I like to work with textures. So like, how can I like chew this until I can feel that I have this kind of like mushy texture in my mouth? I'm rolling around and really paying attention to it.
That's wonderful. That's such a good way to see it. So now that we are in these times of pandemic and we have to wash our hands every time we come in and out, which I think is something that we should be doing always, not just now. What are some of the things that you suggest we should be eating, that they should be on our diet every day, if you can recommend?
Well, that's a really difficult question because we're all so, bio-individual. Every single person is so unique in the way that they are set up. And I know that grains have been getting a really bad rap recently. Like everyone's gone paleo or they've gone ketogenic. But I like to look at like humanity and how humanity's really developed over the course of our civilization. And the term meal actually means ground grain. And if you look at Ayurvedic and you look at Chinese medicine, you look at macrobiotic, you look at a lot of like the historical ways that civilizations have actually grown, and there's a lot of grains in those diets.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went into, I knew that we were going to be locked down for quite some time. Of course, I bought some rice. And, you know, I grow my own veggies, as you well know, and you have a beautiful vegetable garden too. And I'll be bringing you some veggies. But I really want people to, the best thing that people can do is to eat a very varied and balanced diet and not stick to one thing all the time, and to really learn with themselves their own eating rhythm. So the good thing to do is to have a light breakfast, and to have a nice full lunch, and then to reduce your meal size in the evening so that you're actually allowing your body to detoxify overnight and not overloading the system. So I suggest that instead of telling people what to eat, I would rather encourage people to eat with an eating rhythm.
That is so interesting. And it's such a great way to see it coming from a different perspective in terms of, you know, we eat so much, and in this conversation about the environment, so many people live in places where there is no healthy food, in food deserts, where there's no access to fresh products or so. Earlier, you were having a conversation with some folks from Standing Rock that are very close, dear to my heart, because I went to Standing Rock to support the efforts around the Dakota Access Pipeline. What is the Dakota community or the Standing Rock Sioux folks are, you know, sharing in these times of having like a global pandemic?
Well, it was a lot about compassion, actually. We were talking a lot about love and the importance of love in our lives, and the importance of waking up. And because she was talking with us about the water fast, it was about our relationship to water, and really waking up in the morning and nourishing ourselves. Like she was speaking about making a container of water every evening, and that the water has intelligence. And so asking the water that the water will receive what we need over the night while we're sleeping. And then when we wake up in the morning, to drink that water, and that it will be like ingesting our prayers. And really about having relationship to the things that we grow. And, you know, we talk about these food deserts, and we talk about, you know, especially in the Midwest, there's lots of people where there's farmland, and yet they don't have much fresh produce, which is a really sad situation, that they would be surrounded by farms, and that the farms have like chemicals being sprayed on them, and then they go to their local supermarkets, and all they can get is packaged foods. So we were speaking a little bit about that, and how it's important to really come together in community and cook in community. You know, times where you can kind of share food, and obviously it's difficult at the moment because community is really being separated.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like being able to share what you have, and really like making like these one pots, and then being able to take them to people that you know are in need of them.
Oh, amazing. And I have been having some Zoom dinners, so for whatever it's worth, you can still have your community that way. I want to share some questions that the audience is having.
Yes.
So Emily is asking how frequently you fast, and if it's not food at all, or if it's veggies, or how are you doing with your
My fasting process.
fasting practice?
Yes. So I fast 1 day a week. And so this is like just a little bit longer than an intermittent fast, but it's still just a liquid only day. And that is, I take out all the fiber, so I don't have smoothies or soups. And that's just for a 24-hour period. And then once a season, I will do a longer fast. So I will do either like a 3 or a 5 day, and that will be liquid only. And if I'm working with something, if I'm working with a specific health opportunity, let's say, then I will fast for longer, and it will be only water.
Okay.
So last year I did a 10-day water fast because I was having thyroid issues, and I managed to get the results I wanted from a 10-day water fast.
Wow, this is incredible. 10 days, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to ask you another question that I see here on Instagram. So somebody's asking for suggestions or options on how to take time, analyze, and get going once again.
Okay, so this is actually really important. It's really important to step down. If you imagine lots of people who are fasting at the moment, or like you hear people doing like 5-day juice fasts. Oftentimes what they're doing is they're like, oh, just before, I know that I'm going to fast tomorrow, so I'll have a big meal tonight. And then they like holding on as tight as they can to get through the 5 days. And then when they get through the 5 days, they're visualizing the food that they want to eat. And the minute that it gets to like they've done their 5 days, they're like back eating to how they had done before. And that to me seems very counterproductive. It's a bit like jumping off of a cliff into, possibly rocky waters and trying to find your way back to the shore. And I really suggest sort of coming down to the water's edge, taking off the clothes bit by bit, and then walking into the water to become buoyant, and then walking back out again. And what I mean by that is, taking out all your processed foods and then starting to eat, you can eat grains, lentils and vegetables, and then going down to vegetables, and then doing your fast, and then coming back out the same way. So if you're doing a 5-day juice fast, 5-day water fast, you would start 1 day on juice, then you would add vegetables, then you would add grains, then you would add fats, and then you would be out.
So basically gradually returning to a much normalized diet.
Yes, slowly, incrementally.
Somebody's asking here, is sugar and bread are bad for our immune system?
Sugar and bread bad for our immune system as we fast and keep our distance as we fast. And is there something as we fast ... What can you read the whole question?
As we fast and keep our distance from the virus. I guess the question is about sugar and bread.
Okay, then I would say yes, sugar is definitely I'm not going to call it an evil, but I will call it, it's a powerful substance. And I would say that sugar is something that needs to be used lightly, and understanding that not all sugars are created equal. So don't put dates and apples in the same realm as you would white sugar. Understand that our body recognizes the simple sugars inside dates, and it finds it very hard to process the white sugars or the white breads. Oftentimes these are highly processed foods, and our body can't really understand what to do with it. It's like an overload. So, whereas like the sugar that comes in fruit, your body slowly unpacks it and it can work out how to deal with it. But whereas the white sugar is like a truckload of it, just like being dumped in your system. And so your body ends up with, sometimes you can end up with insulin resistance and, other issues like diabetes. And the other thing that I will add about sugar is oftentimes we have a lot of bacteria in our gut. And when we're eating a lot of like simple sugar, a lot of like processed sugar, this will cause a lot of like plumes in our gut of bacteria, which our body will find difficult to deal with.
Wow, incredible to know. I know that before you and I were speaking about this, talk about how with the virus it's best to drink warm liquids, teas, Tell us, what are the 3 top recommendation teas that we should all be drinking if we can?
If you have access to white sage, then white sage, I would say, is the number one. It's one of the strongest antivirals we have out there.
Wow.
So if you can pick white sage, be very mindful if you're going into the wild and foraging it. Make sure that you just take a few bits and that you leave the plant nice and abundant. Or you can use dried sage that you might have for smudging. So that would be a number one for me. And then I would say like a ginger and turmeric and lemon. That's always a good one. And also like for the virus, I would say cinnamon. I would say make a cinnamon tea at home, like just in a little pan, and you can add ginger to it as well. So a ginger and cinnamon tea, cinnamon really helps to bring up the heat inside your gut, and which will help to destroy any of the virus inside your gut.
What is your night routine before you go to sleep? Something that you do that you feel it has help you through these times, or just in general, something that you try to do before you go to sleep? Right now we're so saturated because we're home all the time. Some of us sleep with our phone right next to our bed, which is terrible. Some of us fall asleep with looking at our phones, so we're one of those folks, or maybe not. Maybe you leave the phone outside of your room, which is wonderful. But what is a practice that we can do, or what is your personal practice that you can teach us before you go to sleep?
So the practice that I do actually when I'm in bed, lying down, is it's a stomach massage. I give myself a stomach massage, and it's a practice called Chinesang, and it's a Taoist practice. And if you think about it, your belly button is the place that we first received all of our information from. It's where we got our blood from, our nutrients, our oxygen, everything came through our belly button. And so the practice is like our stomach. You can also, when you get angry, people feel like they have knots in their stomach. Or when you're excited, you feel like you have butterflies in your stomach. That's because there's a lot of energy in our gut brain and around our navel center. And over the course of the day, we can end up with a lot of stress built up in the stomach. And this can also restrict our ability to be able to sleep peacefully. The last thing I do while I'm in bed, and if you imagine your belly button like a clock, so just two inches above the navel is the 12 o'clock, and then coming down to your left-hand side would be 3 o'clock, and so on. So what you do is you put your fingers in and you breathe in, and then as you exhale, and what you're doing is you're just pushing and spiraling with your fingers as you go in, and you'll actually, so you're breathing in, and so if you imagine this as your belly, and I go around and around my belly like this. And this just, you'll find yourself actually maybe burping or releasing a lot of gas. But you'll also find yourself releasing a lot of stress. And it's, to me, it's the best way to wake up and to go to sleep. Is just to connect to your belly, put your hands on your belly, like, smooth and rub out this area. And I can almost guarantee you that you will have a deeper, more relaxing sleep.
I'm definitely going to try that tonight. And one of the things that I practice, actually, I learned this through Guru Mai. She is from the Siddha Yoga tradition, is that she said that you think about a fire in your mind. You close your eyes and you think about a big fire, like lots of flames, and you just burn everything that happened to you that day. And you just throw it in the fire. That this person texted me and it was mean, or that person said this to me, or my boss messaged me that, or I saw in the news and I hate Trump, and whatever there is, you think about that and you just toss it in the fire. I hate this person. I love this person and this person doesn't love me back. Or I just love this person, like everything in the fire, in an action of letting go. So I want to close our conversation talking about the duality between forgiveness and joy. Because in this time of pandemic, we can build up so much anger because the economy is bad and I lost my job, or I don't get what I want, or I don't get to go outside. I want to go to the beach. I want to go see my family in Colombia. I want, or whatever it is. And we need to bring a lot of forgiveness, compassion, and joy to our daily life. So I wanted to just ask you, what are your actions of compassion that also have that other side, which when we bring compassion and forgiveness, we also bring joy?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that the act of forgiveness is such sometimes it's easier to forgive others than it is ourselves. I find that even though we hold resentment for other people, I feel that we hold a lot of like self-judgment for ourselves. So a practice that I do is, it's like a Tonglen practice, where you, first of all, like I send out loving kindness towards like the smallest thing in nature that I can see. And I start with like, just because for me, I find it much easier to express a feeling of loving kindness towards like either an animal or a flower, or an act of something that I see as benevolent and beautiful. And so I harvest that feeling inside me. I feel it and I allow that feeling to like permeate my whole body. And then as I start to feel that feeling, I turn that feeling in on myself. So I allow myself to bathe in that feeling. And then when I can feel myself full of the act of like loving myself, I allow it to expand out to me, and I allow it to sort of seep out into the world, touching other people. I see the people that I love in my life, whether it be my mother in Greece or my friends around the world. And then I start to include other people, and even down to the people, like you say, the people that trigger you. I start to include those. But I always start with looking at nature first, because it's, to me, the most benevolent beauty we have.
That's beautiful. And I want to thank you so much for joining today and for just sharing your experience and a little bit of your knowledge with us. I wanted to have a conversation with someone that has experience with the spiritual and healthy eating practices, because I firmly believe that we cannot heal the world unless we heal ourselves first.
Yeah.
And that by healing ourselves, we're going to heal the world. The fact that you eat vegetables and that fast, I mean, eating less meat is so important, so that we can reduce our greenhouse gas, our footprint, and such. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share with us before you go.
Yeah, I would love to just say that, when we realize that the microcosm and the macrocosm are the same, then we realize that we've been given this like small piece of nature to look after. And if we can look after our own piece of nature, which is like we have a universe within inside ourselves, like the reason that you look at the lungs of the planet, which is suffering, and now we have this illness which is affecting our lungs. I don't think that is a strange coincidence after what we just did to the Amazon, to the forests. And when we look at what's happening in our oceans and how polluted our oceans and our waters are, it is no coincidence that our own emotions, which are the waters that run in our body, are also polluted. So when we can start to change our body, like many people have said, like change starts within. And I think that if we can listen into the deeper meaning behind that, what it means is if we really, really care for this body temple that we've been given, this amazing piece of nature that we've been given, then we will see this care reflected out into the world. When we nourish ourselves with good food, when we think good thoughts, we will create a better environment for all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining today. I really, really appreciate you. And for those of you that want to learn more about Jo, please follow her work. She's incredible. And her Instagram handle is on the chat here and in other places. So I appreciate so much. Thank you so much. And you have an amazing Tuesday.
Thank you so much. I love you, Aura. You're incredible.
We'll talk soon. Love you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining. I really, really appreciate you guys being here with me tonight. And before we go, I just want to say a few things about healing ourselves and healing our planet. We're all on this together and we are interrelated. So next time you go to the supermarket, think about where you're getting the food that you're getting. If it's being farmed in a good way, if you're consuming meat that is coming from another country, like from the Amazons in Brazil or some other place, and how this affects them, and how deforestation is happening in other places because of the oil that we consume. So again, shop small, do it local, grow your own food, try to eat less meat. Maybe have one day that you don't eat as much meat. Try to be good to others and try to practice something that is going to make you happy, because the more happy that you are, the more your environment is going to be happy and the more the world is going to be happy. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Tomorrow, we're going to have another exciting show and we're going to be talking about plastic pollution. I have been walking around and I see so many plastic gloves running around on the streets, and we can't allow that, guys. And the ordinance around not using single-use of plastic has been lifted. So we're going to have a conversation with somebody that started a beautiful program in the Dominican Republic around plastic pollution and waste. So join me tomorrow at 7. And thank you all so much for joining me tonight. This was a wonderful show, and I hope to see you very soon. VTH is virtual town halls. I talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.